What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome in to another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Football Show, a proud member of the Fantrax Podcast Network and the FantraxHQ.com fam. D. Mendy here, joined as always by Johnny Foosball, John Van Etten. John, Zay Jones, he's back in the fold. How are you feeling about this?
It's his breakout year. I can finally feel it. Third year on the Raiders where I've been feeling that. But, he got a touchdown last year. So let's get two.
Oh, so is that a bet? Double his touchdowns next year?
Easily doubles his touchdowns.
I love it. Also joined by a man who likes to make smoothies with his girlfriend. It's the Doc, Eric Mendelson. What's going on?
I thought you only brought her up on the baseball show, man.
Just this one time on the football show.
They strawberry smoothies? Banana?
Blueberry? Mostly blueberry. Throwing some bananas in there. She has an ice cream maker as well, so we've been getting a little frisky.
Yeah, frisky with smoothies. It's turning the show weird real quick. No Brad Stradamus tonight, so we're bringing in an upgrade. Tonight, we welcome in a man who's known as a lover, as he spreads love throughout the fantasy football community. He's also known as a fighter for spitting fire at the Podfather. The co-host of Fantasy Intervention, this football guy also doubles as a singer, a dancer, a consumer of the finest beers. Fellas, Daddy's home, Daddy's home. And I'm singing a fa-la-la-la-la because we're welcoming in Mike Faella, Elala. What's going on, man?
Damn, man, no one's ever going to beat that intro. I'm all hyped now, man. You made me sound way more important than I've ever been in my life. I appreciate you, brother.
And you know what's funny, right? As he says beer consumer, you just take a sip of it and put it down. You got to tell everyone what you're drinking.
Oh, tonight we got a little sip from Lawson's. So it's their little lighter version of Sip of Sunshine, their flagship beer out of Vermont. So best IPAs you can find up here in the Northeast.
Little sip of little sip.
Just took a little sip of my little sip, and now we're going to get after it.
I appreciate you, Jordan. Yeah, man. So I obviously know what you've been doing for a little while. You are, again, one of the biggest guys spreading positivity in a community that can have a lot of negativity at times. So you're kind of that shining light that can help shine light on what is a great thing in this fantasy football community. There's a lot of people jealous or spiteful or just don't like what people are saying. So how do you find yourself still able to be so positive when kind of all this negative stuff keeps flowing in?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? When I look at what I do here, it is an escape from life. I'm not looking for anything other than football and fun. Today, I spent my whole day making fun of Rondell Moore because I had nothing else better to do. And the fact is, I think when you get, you're always going to get confronted with trolls. You guys know this. You're on Twitter for more than 5 minutes, you're going to get trolled. I just learned how to have fun with it. I have a blast. I had one guy, I had told him that the perfect comp for AJ Dillon was, I think it was 1997, week 2 TJ Duckett, just messing around with people. And some guy is just man, it's because of tweets like this. I hate Twitter. I just responded. I'm yo, man, me too. I mean, it's all good, brother. My mom hates me too. We can make this happen. But I mean, realistically, this is a game that we play. It's a game about a game. I ain't going to take that too seriously. You know what I mean? And, I get that we all hear the noise. We hear the negativity. But if you really pay attention, 98% of it is positive. I came up watching, Sal Stefanelli, Sal Pal, Scott Fish, Ryan McDowell. These are the guys that, I watched coming up, and they've been nothing but positive. You never see hate. You never see anything out of them. And I'm man, if they can do it with 40,000 followers, I can do it in this tiny little universe of mine that basically hardly anybody knows I exist. It ain't that hard to navigate at that point. So, yeah, football and fun, that's really all I care about, to be honest.
Yeah, and I remember I first saw you when the whole Podfather thing came out, and I was man, thank you for owning him, because he's definitely, I mean, he's a character, but he needed to be called out, and you did a great job of that. And again, it's been fun talking through the Twitter community, but actually having you on tonight to talk a little football, it's a whole different kind of relationship now. So as long as you're comfortable with us moving forward, I don't like to push too hard here. So
No, this is we're completely all on the same page here. We can make this happen. We're all good. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, got some fun stuff on the docket tonight. We're talking free agent Fantasia part 2. Mike, when I ask you what Fantasia is, what does that mean to you?
Oh man, that is a dope ass Mickey Mouse movie, ain't it? Like it is a guy wearing a hat, making orchestras happen. I love that. I love that. Are we going to do some songs from it, or what do you want to do?
So
the people think it's for Disney, but I meant it as like a Fantasia Barrino from American Idol.
Yes. Okay. I was going to mention that. Thank you.
We can do that too if you want. We can absolutely do that. So we're going to do some songs from her. I have to pull some up. I mean, that's what, 10 years ago now.
She didn't win that season though, right?
No, she won. She did.
Did she win?
I think so.
No,
I don't think she did.
That she was like from when like the winner of American Idol always did worse than the runners up and everything. Like career wise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because remember that dude.
I feel like she like beat out like Kelly Clarkson or something, or Carrie Underwood. I feel like.
No, they were the seasons before that. She was in the same one with LaToya London. All right,
that's a name.
She was the.
Oh,
winner.
she did win. She did win.
Mm-hmm.
She almost got eliminated one episode, but she did win.
She had the lungs of like.
Is she the second least famous though? Now there's the dude who did the truck commercial has to be the most famous, like the least famous, right? Remember that white dude? He was like a soccer dad who won.
Yeah,
Taylor Hicks. He had the gray hair.
I was going to say Justin Guarini too was a nobody.
I only watched.
But he did a movie with Kelly Clarkson. So
that's true. That's true. If you see what he looks like now, because you see Kelly Clarkson everywhere, but you don't see him. You like look him up now.
Adam Rank messed us up because now we just get off topic all the time. I think he ingrained it in us.
It's facts, but it's fun. All good fun. So we're gonna be talking free agent Fantasia. The real reason I changed this is because everybody has free agent frenzy, and we like to be different here. So there's a ton of free agent signings, cuts, and moves. We talked about some last week. We're gonna dive into the other big ones that have happened since we were last airing. Got the perfect guy for that tonight in Mike. After that, we're going to go to our question of the week. That's going to remain a mystery until John asks us at the end of the show, where we also have our game of the week, one of John's favorite patented games. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So, fellas, if you're ready to get another episode started, then, man, we are here to do it for you. Let's do it! Yeah!
Okay, well, are you sure that it's plugged in?
So this is the moment of the show where we usually throw some news and notes at you. But the entire episode is pretty much a news and notes type of scheme, right? So we're going to do some shameless plugs in the meantime, just to fill in a couple minutes here. Mike, I got to ask you, have you checked out the new digs? Have you seen the Triple Play Fantasy website?
I have absolutely seen it.
Oh,
and I am a huge fan, man. I am a huge fan of Triple Play, seeing the new digs. I have also can't believe, man, I cannot believe how thin of a margin you guys missed on going all the way on the CBS MLB podcast, man. It was 50-50. I'm watching it like I'm refreshing like a fool going, how is this going to happen? I've never seen an actual 50-50 poll before.
We lost by 4 votes.
I also think somebody misclicked, so I don't think we ever really looked into that. I mean, how many misclicks were there? We could have won.
Scandals.
I think there is. I think this is like that hanging Chad thing that they had in the election back then. I would absolutely look into that. I'm guaranteeing you something happened. I'm guessing there were burners involved. I have no doubt you guys had the win.
Or could have been a bunch of bots too. Someone could have bought a bunch of bots and swayed the vote. You never know.
That's what I'm guessing happened. Someone called in China, the bots that, and it was over. And hey, I all the power to them. I'm all about winning. But yeah, I think when we talk human votes, you guys probably won by 3,000 if I had to guess.
I like where your head's at, man. It was a fun tournament, that was for sure. Even though after 1,700 votes to lose by 4, it was a little bit of a heartbreaker. But appreciate the support that you and a bunch of the football community gave us. But over at tripleplayfantasy.com or tripplayfantasy.com, you're able to access articles, links to all the other podcasts, YouTube videos. We got them all. So while you're there, make sure you check out all the faces. If you want to see our bios, they're there too. You can also check out the first round of new members of the team. We've got Ahan, Marty, Christian, Alex, and Kiernan, all going to be contributing Dynasty Redraft and team pieces for the squad. So make sure you check those out. Marty Tallman came out with a 5 hitters you need to target in your fantasy baseball drafts later on. So it's a great new piece you can check out on the site. Part of the new expansion is the growth of the YouTube channel, where it's not just sports, but the addition of movie minutes with one of them being Mr. Johnny Foosball. Foosball, can you tell us a little bit what you can expect the movie minutes on our YouTube channel?
So it's movies, and it goes on for at least multiple minutes. And what we do is we talk about it. We talk about the movie. We do reviews. We do spoilers, tons of spoilers, but fun spoilers.
Yeah, they go on some movies I've never heard of, but it's a quick few minute. If
You
you're
haven't heard of
buff,
Toy Story 4? Come on.
Oh, I mean, I've never watched it, but I've heard of it. But they're awesome. They got a lot of good stuff on the movie minutes. Also have some coaches corners for basketball if you're into all that. And then last little bit of plugging, make sure you give us a 5-star rating and review if you like what we're cooking up here. I know every podcast says this is only the beginning, but this is only the beginning. So make sure you guys stick with us. A bunch of great stuff coming along the way here. All right, enough plugging. I don't want to scare Mike away here. So let's dive in to our Free Agent Fantasia Part 2 right after this quick break if you're listening on the podcast side. All right, Free Agent Fantasia Part 2. A lot of moves have been done, and I'm going to try to bring up the most relevant ones. I'm not going to hit every single one because we'd be here for 2 hours. So let's start off with the first one that I have listed here, and that's Will Fuller on a 1-year deal to join the Miami Dolphins. According to Ian Rappaport, it's going to be a 1-year deal with $10 million with incentives present in the deal as well. His PED suspension will prevent him from playing week 1 next year. That whole crazy situation. A guy that's been battling injuries from 2016 to 2019, never eclipsing 14 games in any of those seasons. He finally stayed healthy in his contract year. New career high marks, 879 receiving yards, 16.6 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns in 11 games. The dude looked like a bona fide top 10 wide receiver. Mike, going to you first for this big time guy, Will Fuller, going to the Miami Dolphins. What can we expect from him next year?
All right, so let's talk the pros and cons. The pros are Will Fuller clearly needs narcotics to stay on the field, and Miami might be the best place to get them. So we have that going for us. But the rest of it really, for me, goes on to a downslide at that point. Realistically, I was praying for Will Fuller to end up with a gunslinger. Honestly, Jameis Winston and Will Fuller, to me, was the most fun combination I could actually come up with in my head. Someone who's going to just chuck the ball down the field. Tua was just not that guy. But as sad as I am that Will Fuller landed in Miami, it is nothing compared to the Preston Williams truthers. It's over, guys. It is over. I've been telling you since last year that Preston Williams isn't a thing. It's now over. But the fact is, with Williams as a 4th option, he's out of the picture. What I like about Fuller is there is a good amount of target share here. You're talking Gesicki, Devontae Parker aren't exactly monsters. They're not exactly these top flight where had he gone to Green Bay, which I did like as a landing spot for him because of the quarterback, obviously he's competing for targets with Devontae Parker. And Will Fuller, let's be honest, only needs to catch 2 or 3 balls to get that 100-yard mark and 2 TDs. That's just who he is. I'm just not sure this is the quarterback to make it happen. I thought it might be a precursor to a Watson deal. Honestly, now it looks like that's not going to happen. We don't have to get into why, but it looks like realistically we're looking at Tua and Fuller. I just don't see a great match. I see Fuller being more now the guy who's going to take the top off the defense so that Tua has those open throws across the middle. I think this more helps Parker and Gesicki than it does actually help Fuller. I hate the match, but the only thing that I love about it is it's a 1-year deal. I think he's taken the route that a lot of free agents are taking, which is expecting that TV deal coming next year. So signing that 1-year deal with the potential contender, which Miami is, to do that prove-it contract, prove that he can stay healthy, and then look at the big money next year. I think in Dynasty is still a nice play, but in redraft, I'm getting away from Will Fuller. I'm already not in love with those boomer bust players, but I'm certainly not going to go for one that's attached to Tua. It's just not a great fit for me personally.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tua's longest completion last year, I think was around 33 yards or so, and it was a screen pass. So he's not a guy that was taking a lot of chances downfield. I know people are going to say that hip injury, now he's going to have a year under his belt to get it stronger and better, but I agree. Someone who's a deep threat like Will Fuller is, it's hard to watch a guy that didn't take a lot of shots last year trying to get him the ball. And I agree, a lot of those other guys can benefit. Doc, is there anything you would like to add about Will Fuller? How are you feeling about him in redraft, dynasty, any of those type of things?
I think Mike hit the nail on the head for a lot of it, especially signing that 1-year deal, because the TV revenue is going to go up. And, if he has a decent year, he can potentially cash in for more. I made a joke. I said he's going to be good for weeks 2 and 3, and then he's going to pull his hamstring because it's a soft tissue injury. So I think if you do take him in redraft, just knowing his injury history, he's definitely going to be a sell high candidate. I know Tua didn't complete a lot of deep balls last year, but like you said, there is going to be the offseason. Yeah, maybe he's not going to throw downfield a lot, but they have an entire offseason to figure out how they want to utilize him and scheme him in. So I'm not a huge Will Fuller fan, more just for the injury risk, but I do like his prospects going forward. I think it was a good signing by the Dolphins, especially for a 1-year deal, because if he gets hurt or doesn't live up, you're not hamstrung, pun intended, for years to come.
There you go. Yeah, there was 35 yards was his longest pass attempt on 33 deep ball attempts, which is 20 or more yards downfield. So not a great match there. Johnny, I'm going to start with you for the next guy here as we move on. And we're going to talk about Curtis Samuel, who's found a new home with the Washington football team. This wasn't a 1-year deal. This was a 3-year deal worth up to $35.25 million, 24.5 guaranteed. He was a second-round pick. His numbers have progressed and improved each year in the NFL, which accumulated to the 2020 season, career high 1,051 yards from scrimmage and 5 touchdowns. He also garnered a career high 41 rushing attempts. So he's the type of guy that you can expect to also get some carries. So do you like this match between Curtis Samuel and the Washington football team?
No, I mean, I saw a lot of Curtis Samuel love going into free agency. He seemed like the darling, which I really didn't seem to understand that much. And then especially going into the Washington football team, where they don't really, have the whole quarterback situation fully ironed out completely. There's still a lot up in the air. And I didn't think he was as explosive as everyone was building him up to be. I don't think he's going to actually be running the ball like he was. That was more out of necessity with Christian McCaffrey out. And I just don't see them doing that between Washington's nice young running back and then also their love affair with J.D. McKissick. So I don't really see him getting a ton of carries. And, after that, he's just more of a mediocre receiver.
You don't like the kissing man at all?
Is that what you're calling him?
Yeah.
I think John is just salty for wide receivers that get rushing attempts because Robert Woods.
Well, we'll save that for another day. That's a whole other tangent. Mike, how are you feeling about Curtis Samuel with Ryan Fitzpatrick obviously looking like he's going to be the week 1 starter, barring anything crazy? He tends to seem like he likes to lock on to his number 1 guy. Between you have the Stevie Johnson back in Buffalo, Brandon Marshall with the Jets, you have Devontae Parker with Miami. Are you worried that he might be that for Terry McLaurin and that Curtis Samuel might suffer because of that?
I am. Yeah, I think that I love this for the Washington football team. I like this as a football signing, and I like what Curtis Samuel is going to do for the rest of the team. He's going to take at least some attention away from the defense, but the fact is he's probably the 4th option on this team. When you look at McLaurin, who I think is a bona fide one, and I do think Fitzpatrick's going to feed him. You look at your second option is going to be Logan Thomas at tight end, and then obviously you have Antonio Gibson, who is probably a better wide receiver than Curtis Samuel anyway, coming out of the backfield. So I love this for everybody involved, except for Curtis Samuel. And what I love is that if you go back to the people that are talking about how great this is, the Curtis Samuel truthers, I just wish I had even the amount of energy it would take to go back 2 years to talk about how bad they wanted to get him away from Ron Rivera because he's killing Curtis Samuel. And now we're celebrating it. Oh, here's a guy who knows them. I just don't think Curtis Samuel is that guy. I think he's a very good football player. But I don't think he's a number 1. I think he's a complimentary piece. And granted, they got him for less than my team paid for Nelson Aguilar, so I can't even complain about the deal. But overall, I think Samuel is just another piece to this offense and not a very high-performing one. You're not going to see him on any of my rosters because there's always one person who loves Curtis Samuel more than me. Sometimes there's multiple, but there's always one. He's going to that team, and I have no problem with that. I have no problem with missing here. I just don't see the volume. I don't see him as being explosive enough to do it on limited volume, like we just talked about Will Fuller. His game is predicated on getting the volume, getting those unique touches, like you talked about, getting the handoffs. He's not going to see those types of plays, so I just don't see him as a fantasy factor at all, to be honest.
I completely agree with you. I think better real life move than fantasy move, even though he'll slide into the number 2 slot most likely. If you look at the Washington football team, they fed Logan Thomas, they fed Terry McLaurin, they fed the running backs in that system. Obviously, you have Fitzpatrick in there now, so it might be a little bit different, but you got to wonder how much work will there be for the number 2 wide receiver. Doc, I'm going to go to you next for these next guy on here because he plays in the division of your favorite football team here. Gerald Everett. He's going to stay in the NFC West, but he's going from the Rams to the Seahawks on a 1-year deal. A lot of tight ends moving. He's the next big name. It's a $7 million deal with $6 million guaranteed. There were high hopes for him as he was selected as a second-round pick in the 2017 drafts, but he has yet to put together that standout season I think many hoped he was going to do. Are you excited about this move to the Seahawks, or is this somebody that I think the name is going to carry value and you're staying away?
I mean, I think the name value, but I don't think Gerald Everett is even like that big a name to begin with. Like, I think going into the season, everybody was more bullish on Tyler Higbee, but you look at Gerald Everett's games from last year, he played 15 of them. He only had more than 5 catches in one game. The most he had was 90 receiving yards. After that, his most in a game was 44. He's used as a blocker. And with Seattle, I mean, they're a run-heavy team. They re-signed Chris Carson, so I think he's going to get the ball a lot. They're already going to feed Metcalf and Lockett, and I think that offense is losing a little bit of its efficiency. I think there's going to be a little bit more disconnect, kind of if we've heard the rumblings come out. So, I mean, yeah, Gerald Everett is maybe a tight end that you stream, but I don't see you taking him and being like, yeah, he's going to be my starter week in, week out. Tight ends have never really thrived in Seattle. Jacob Hollister, Will Dissly, Jimmy Graham, they've never really performed like you'd expect the wide receivers that they've had.
So, Mike, I want to go back to you. You have Chris Carson there, who's back in the fold. We'll get to him in a second. He's somebody that when he's there, they're going to run the ball a lot. Like Doc's mentioned, they have DK Metcalf, they have Tyler Lockett. They want to get the ball. Would you put Gerald Everett in the top 12 for redraft for next year?
Just outside. I think I have him somewhere around 14. But when you start getting outside of that top 4, you're really talking touchdown dependent. And I think when you look at Gerald Everett, he's a big target. He's an athletic target. And what they don't have is really that true red zone threat. When you look at the wide receivers they have, especially Tyler Lockett being a burner, what they don't have is that big body that Russell Wilson can go to around the goal line. Now, granted, they're going to run it.
DK Metcalf's really short.
No, he's tall, but he's not you know what I mean. He's not a high pointer. He's more of going to beat you on the routes. He's not a guy who is going to box you out of the play. That's just not his game. So what I think you're going to see is when you talked about, and David, you mentioned this, Jimmy Graham, a hobbled Jimmy Graham was still getting a lot of red zone targets. I think Gerald Everett can convert some of those. So what I don't see is like when you look at Devontae Adams in Green Bay, who's getting a lot of 1-yard touchdowns. When you look at like that guy that people are looking at 5 yards in, they tend to run the ball, except when they should have in the Super Bowl, of course. But they tend to run the ball. But I think there'll still be enough red zone touches that he could fall into that top 12. Just like anybody else could. Let's not forget what the top 12 looked like last year. 5 touchdowns is good enough. So in a wasteland of a position, I'm going to take a chance on a guy who, runs a 4.62 at 240. He is a big boy. He's still young. We're not talking about an aging vet here. We're talking about a 26-year-old player who is getting a chance with the Hall of Fame quarterback. I'll take that over what we're getting for the garbage at the bottom of the position. I think that when you look at him in redraft, where I put him next to is like a Cole Kmet, Adam Troutman type player. And I think that when you look at all the press that Troutman is getting as a tight end, Gerald Everett is far and away a better athlete than Adam Trautman. Don't get it confused here. He is a better athlete. So I'm going to take a chance on a guy who could blow up. I'm not going to love him in my tight end 1, but you'd be damn sure I'll be putting him as my tight end 2 in a lot of leagues and hoping that he reaches the ceiling that we thought he was going to reach with the Rams.
Yeah, a great guy you can pair with somebody else, and then if it doesn't work out, you're not relying on him solely. So I like that. Let's stay with Seattle. I don't know if there's going to be too much analysis unless you guys have something different about Chris Carson. Happy he got the bag, got 2-year deal. I believe it was worth $14.63 million, so a really weird number, but happy for my guy that he's one of my favorite running backs to watch. He's a bruising guy that gives it all every single play. 7th round pick. But as far as for redraft for next season, I know Dynasty, his values every year kind of goes down a little bit, obviously, because he's aging. He's been in the league a few years. But as far as redraft, are we keeping him about where he's been? Is there anything too much to discuss here, dissect? You guys,
he might be one of the most consistent players. Like he's consistent 800-900 yards, playing 12 to 13 games and missing 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's because he worked. He's a tough runner, so again, will be good for that. A couple like small bit of news I want to get before we get to some more bigger guys here. Mitch Trubisky is backing up Josh Allen in Buffalo for only $2.5 million. That's like third string.
That is my least favorite quarterback room of any team in history.
Well, is it just them two? Because I know Matt Barkley's gone.
Jake Fromm.
Oh, Jake Fromm's still there?
Oh, well, they still have him on the team.
Then even worse.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Good God.
I mean, I would love to be in a party with those three, but I don't think I'd want to be like on an NFL team with those three. But I mean, they have an interesting room there. Agreed. A couple other AJ Green to the Cardinals. Are we interested in that?
Kinda.
No.
Oh, Doc, this is supposed to be easy. Now you got
No. It's just like depending where he goes, like it's a dart throw. Like if he's going in the 6th or 7th round, like he has been going, then no. But like if you can get him in the 10th or 11th round, yeah, why not?
I don't know. I'm
he had
really
a terrible
worried.
year. He's going to be fiery. Kyler throws the ball a lot. There we go.
Go ahead, Mike.
So here's my favorite tweet of the week. I had an Andy Isabella truther kind of popping off about the AJ Green signing. And he said, when are they going to give Isabella a shot? And I said, probably week 4, it's AJ Green. And that's how I feel about him. I mean, if you're talking about selling high on Will Fuller because he's going to pull a hamstring, Will Fuller is just a better version of AJ Green who's going to pull a hamstring as well. Like, I just think this isn't a guy who I'm going to even think is going to be suiting up for the fantasy playoffs. So if you're planning on making the playoffs, I hope you're not planning on relying on AJ Green.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, again, he's somebody I actually would think you're either going to snag at the end of your draft or someone that might even go undrafted. He's just an aging wide receiver, probably going to play in the slot, I would think, they'll probably have Christian Kirk in the slot. And then they'll have him and they'll have DeAndre Hopkins on the outside. I'm not looking to grab him anywhere. Obviously, in Dynasty, he's probably left out there and not even going to be picked up anywhere. But moving to an interesting bit of news here. Not that the guy himself isn't interesting, but the situation kind of begs to be talked about here. And that's Mr. Marlon.
The guy himself isn't interesting.
He's not. I mean, let's be honest. No one's really looking at him this way. It's Marlon Mack. I mean, a guy that tore his Achilles week 1, a 1-year, $2 million deal. When you see Marlon Mack, your mind immediately goes to Jonathan Taylor, right? Mm-hmm. The guy that everybody's touting as the best running back now in the league or somewhat some kind of version after Christian McCaffrey. I'm curious if you guys think this is going to affect your thoughts on Jonathan Taylor next year. I'll start with you, Mike. What do you think?
No, of course not. This is a guy coming off an Achilles. They're hoping to see something in him this year that makes him viable to re-sign next year. This isn't a contract for him for this year. You're going to see the same combo you've seen, which is Taylor and Hines. And what you're going to see is Mack hopefully filling the Jordan Wilkins role that you saw in that second half of the season. They're going to give him like 3 to 5 carries, just hoping he can hold up. This is not an ACL. Like what I keep hearing from people is he's coming back from injury. This is an Achilles. This is a plant move that you have to have that intact. This isn't an injury we've ever seen a running back come back from. This takes away your explosiveness from a guy who didn't have a ton of it to begin with. I think Marlon Mack, as much as I would love to see him be a great story and come back from this, there's no way I can bet on that. And there's no way I can see a team. They'd be reckless to give him more than 3 to 5 carries. And you knew that Jonathan Taylor was going to have somebody fill that role. In my opinion, this is perfect if you have Taylor, that you have a guy that you know can't carry the load. You have a guy you know isn't going to cut into your workload. So I think if you're someone who has Taylor on your roster, this should be very welcome news to you. This is somebody who in 2021 is going to hope to show something to get a contract for 22 and beyond. This isn't a player who's going to put up numbers in this year.
No, I agree. I mean, again, it's somebody that he looked like it was going to be a problem starting out last year, but Jonathan Taylor looks like he's established himself as the guy. Maybe, Ian, you may be worried a little bit about Hines.
David, did I really hear you say people are saying he's the second best running back?
So, I mean, I've seen stuff on Twitter. People are like, after Christian McCaffrey, this is going to be the guy that they're targeting in their drafts.
Well, I think drafts are different than real life. Like, yeah, you take him because he's young. But
I mean, this is a fantasy show, so I meant in like the fantasy aspect. Are we forgetting where we're not on first take right now?
I wouldn't even put him there for fantasy either. That unless only dynasty related.
Or
but
dynasty. Dynasty.
So where would you? All right, so dynasty.
So
dynasty,
David, let me rattle off some names of running backs I'd rather have: Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb. Shoot, I'd even probably take James Robinson.
Whoa, that's
hold on.
spicy.
There's spiciness here. Hold on.
We were all nodding along, and then bam.
Yeah. Well, you had us at the beginning, not at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you had to throw Carlos Hyde in there because he's the starter if you're going to talk about Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's. I've just seen people hyping up Jonathan Taylor again. Dynasty for sure. In redraft, I've seen other people talk about if they can't get Christian McCaffrey, this is the guy that they're targeting. They're concerned. Obviously, you have Dalvin Cook. You have some injury history. You have Alexander Madison. That's going to take away some of the work. I mean, Aaron Jones, obviously, he's been very efficient with his carries. You have to worry about if A.J. Dillon's going to step in and take away some goal line work. I mean, there's always, like, obviously questions about every guy. That's why I had seen Jonathan Taylor rising up people's ranks. Not that I necessarily agree with it, but a couple other guys I want to touch on here. John, I want to go right back to you. John Brown going to Las Vegas. He's going to your team, the Raiders, on a 1-year, $3.75 million deal. He set career highs last year, 72 catches, 1,060 receiving yards. I'm sorry, that was the first season with the Bills, but then he was limited to 9 games in last year. Yeah, I'm mixing up my years. Last year had some injuries, but right now it looks like he's expected to take that Nelson Aguilar role. So is this some guy that I don't think you're obviously using a high pick on, maybe even not even a mid round, but someone you might try to target kind of towards the back end of your draft?
I mean, at the end of last season, Nelson Aguilar was the definition of dependable. Even though you think he's only the big play, he was putting up consistent numbers. And going into last season, if you would ask people who's better, John Brown or Nelson Aguilar, they would have given you John Brown 100 times out of 100 times. So I think this is only an upgraded receiver. And, you know, if he's healthy, he looks to slot in as a possible number 1A between him and Ruggs, and Derek Carr will give him work.
Yeah, there you go. We don't need to touch on that one anymore. There's bigger guys we'll get to. Doc, I want to just have you be the only one touch on.
Yeah, he is a short fella.
How tall is he?
He's not very tall.
Yeah, he's got to be like 5'10", right?
That might be 5. All right, I'm pulling it up right now. 5'11". Wow.
Taller than I thought.
So he says.
Yeah, it's listed.
He was too scared to put himself at 6 feet, which means he is actually
I list myself
5'9".
at 6 feet. So.
I was going to say he lists himself at 5'11", which basically means he's 6 foot.
All right, well, there you go. Doc, how do you feel about Emmanuel Sanders with the Bills? It's like many right now, 1-year deal, $6 million, but he's basically sliding into that John Brown role, and then everybody waiting for the Gabe Davis breakout. We were very upset probably by this news. Everybody wanting Gabe Davis to be the number 2. Doc, if you have the choice between the two in your draft, it's not in Dynasty, it's no question. You're obviously going Gabe Davis, but if you're in a redraft league and you have to choose between the two to have a better year next year, who are you picking?
I'm actually taking Emmanuel Sanders. I'm a big Sanders fan. He had 726 receiving yards last year with the Saints, playing in only 14 games, and kind of with that iffy quarterback situation, Drew Brees not able to throw the ball downfield and kind of not having
and Taysom Hill not being able to throw the ball down the field.
I was waiting for you to assist me on that. I think people forget of how much of a competitor Emmanuel Sanders is. In 2018, when he tore his Achilles, he came back and was ready by the opening week of 2019. So he's a bona fide football player. I think he's a great route runner. I think he's someone that is going to help Josh Allen elevate his game to an even higher level. I think he's a great complement to Diggs. He's not going to be that home run threat, but maybe he plays in the slot, takes some under routes, and can get a little bit of yak. So you're right. Dynasty, it's Gabe Davis, no question. But redraft, I feel more comfortable with Sanders.
Yeah, Sanders is a yak daddy, so he'll have that for Josh Allen this year. Love those yak daddies. Let's go to the Giants next. I want to touch both the moves they made here, starting with the little one and then the big one. So, Mike, I want to go to you. Kyle Rudolph first. Is he worth anything odd? Is he worth a gamble as a second tight end later on in your draft? 2-year, $14 million deal. So he's hopefully going to maybe get some kind of looks there. And then the big dog, the Kenny Golladay news, him going there, 4-year, $72 million deal. Where are you drafting Kenny Golladay? Where are you ranking him amongst the wide receivers?
All right, so Rudolph, no. We no, just no. Rudolph's not even going to lead the tight ends in targets in a low volume offense. I'm good. So yeah, we can move on from Rudolph. He is a good NFL player. I like the move for the Giants. So if we're talking NFL, love the move. I like Kyle Rudolph, very solid player. But dynasty redraft, don't care. He's not ending up on my roster in either. Kenny Golladay, on the other hand, man, I am wheels up. I've heard a lot of talk about, well, now we're stuck with Daniel Jones. No, what he's stuck in is an offense that is going to feed this man. It's not a one-year deal. This is a long-term deal. They are expecting Kenny Golladay and Saquon Barkley to be the focus of this offense, and I love that. The fact is, we can talk about quarterbacks all we want. We can talk till we're blue in the face, but wide receivers, targets are king. Over anything else, targets are king. And let's not pretend like Daniel Jones can't throw the ball. He is upper middle of the pack for deep throws. Kenny Golladay is their red zone target. He is going to be there everything that Saquon Barkley isn't. And if you look at 2 years ago, what Darius Slayton did, who is a hot mess of garbage, tacked up in a wide receiver. I'm sure he's a wonderful human being, but as an NFL player, he's not very good. Now you have Kenny Golladay. The only concern I have with Golladay is the hip. I'm not a doctor. I went to college for 7 years, but that's because I'm a drunk. But realistically, when you look at Golladay, that's the only concern I have is health. I love this landing spot. Right now, I have him as my wide receiver 16 with the possibility of jumping up to that wide receiver 13 based on the situation that he's in. I think Golladay is right on that cusp of wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 value. And I just think this only helps him. I don't know what people are looking at that I'm not, other than the narrative that Daniel Jones sucks. I think this is a target monster, and I think he's going to get that type of Keenan Allen type target share. And I think Kenny Golladay is a beast if he gets that.
So do you envision best case scenario, this is an offense like New Orleans with Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas basically being the two guys that get all the targets in the passing game, and it being similar with Barkley and Golladay, and then they'll just kind of sprinkle in whatever is left with Ingram and the other guys?
Yeah, I actually think the offense that I would liken it to most that I see playing out is going to be more what the Chargers did with Evan Ingram playing that kind of Hunter Henry role. And Kenny Golladay being Keenan Allen, and obviously Saquon Barkley being Austin Eckler and getting the touches both on the ground and through the air. And if I could get that level of target share, I would love that. The reason why I'm going with that is because I think Golladay just runs a different route tree than Thomas does and likens more to Keenan Allen for me. But I love that whole 12 to 14 targets a game. You don't give out this kind of money in a condensed cap unless you're planning on feeding this man. You're not doing it unless you're planning on him being a focal point. So the contract, the numbers, the years, and his competition, I think is perfect. I think this helps Shepard. I think Shepard's going to be a nice play. I think Slayton goes out to pasture, but I think it'll be a nice play working those underneath routes, 3 to 5 targets. But this leaves a ton for Kenny Golladay. So I love seeing him in that. I think he'll be in that top 10 target share across the league. I have no concern about him that way.
So if I put you on the spot and I were to say over or under 75 catches next year?
Over.
Easily over?
Easy.
Okay. All right. Because I know in PPR leagues, Golladay slips a little bit. So if you can guarantee that there's a lot more catches there, I think a lot more people, PPR is the standard, obviously. So that's more intriguing for his value. So
it's ironic, David, because standard scoring is not PPR.
what did I say?
You said PPR is the standard.
Standard.
It's a joke. You didn't catch my joke.
But yeah, I think when you look at where he was with Detroit, I mean, he was competing with, Marvin Jones. I don't think they have anybody that's even like that. And honestly, in a low volume offense with the quarterback with the broken back, like there was a lot of things to that didn't play out, not to mention he couldn't stay healthy. So that's the caveat, is this man needs to stay healthy, and that becomes his issue. If he stays healthy, I have him 85, 90 catches.
All right. Doc, anything you would like to add to that before we move to the next guy?
Yeah, obviously, Kenny Golladay is an extremely talented player, and I'm definitely dinging him in PPR because 2018 and 2019, he had 119 and 116 targets, but he had 70 and 65 receptions. So he has a career catch percentage of 58.1. So more targets doesn't always necessarily equate to more catches. And Matthew Stafford's been a pretty accurate quarterback throughout his career. I'm not going to say that Daniel Jones sucks or anything. I think he hasn't proved he's on Stafford level yet. He certainly hasn't had the weapons. But also keep in mind how pass-heavy Detroit has been over the years. I don't think they've had an 1,000-yard rusher since like 2012 or something. And then you're going to then go to the Giants where Saquon, assuming he's healthy, is going to get a lot of work. I don't think anybody's doubting the talent or the situation that Golladay is in. I'm kind of one of those. I know obviously there's going to be people that reach and take him and that his value is going to be high. I kind of want to see it for a longer period of time before I really buy in. And I don't think I'll be able to get him at the price that I'm willing to draft him at.
All right, well, let's move to another guy here. I got a couple other guys I want to touch on. The Raiders bringing in Kenyon Drake. It's a significant investment. 2 years, $11 million, basically to back up Brandon Jacobs to be the 1B to his 1A. John Gruden is clearly trying to reinvent the running game this offseason, and most of the offensive line has already been shown the door this month. So, John, I want to go to you first as the Raiders fan on the show. And a real-life football move, it's not bad to bring in good running backs. I think that's okay. Obviously, you can spell Jacobs with a better running back than Jalen Richard, right? But let's talk about it with the fantasy aspect. How much are you bumping down Josh Jacobs, who was kind of a borderline RB1 kind of middle?
I actually think this helps him a lot, and you could see it as the season goes on. The carries just wear on him. The 1 to 2 yard carries, he was doing a lot of work, and it impacts his performance at that point because he'll do 25, 30 carries. The next game isn't going to be as fresh. I like it from that perspective. I still think he's going to get all the goal line work, so you don't have to worry about that aspect. And then from Kenyon Drake, I'm hearing rumblings they might use him like they wanted to use Lynn Bowden Jr. Before they traded him last season. They might even split him out wide sometimes. So I think there's a lot to work with there, and the defense still isn't vastly improved, so there's going to be high-scoring games.
So where are you ranking Josh Jacobs? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Would you take him in the second round? Because I'm hearing rumblings of him going closer to like a third or fourth round pick right now.
I wouldn't have him nearly as high as I did this year just because it looks like, with their decreased workload, and he's not as effective in his workload currently. But I definitely have him in RB1 territory. All
right. So you're probably then going second round on him. So John's the high man on him, but you were the high man on him last year, and it looked pretty good for part of the year before kind of injury.
Looks really good after week one.
Yeah, it's when you have so many carries week in, week out, it's hard to be as effective in the carries you do get.
Mike, are you getting ready to rain on foosball's parade?
So I don't actually care about Kenyon Drake signing there. I had him as running back 22 before he signed. I am not a Josh Jacobs guy, and this is strictly for Dynasty. When you look at what the NFL has told you about running backs who don't catch the ball, this is a guy who has a 75% catch percentage out of the backfield. I don't have to tell you how atrocious that is, given that they're literally just dumping it off to him. Those are easy catches. You're supposed to make those grabs. He's just not the type of player that I think plays well in the NFL. I got crushed in my dynasty rankings that I had him outside my top 20. Like, legitimately, of all the rankings I posted, the Raiders ones were the ones I got killed on, which was Josh Jacobs at 22 and Waller at tight end 4. Why we're angry about Waller at 4, I don't know. Jacobs, I get. Now you talk about no offensive line. You moved on from Hudson. You moved on from Williams. Now you talk about Kenyon Drake coming in, a better version of Devontae Booker, who was taking volume from Jacobs already. What are you really left with?
I really do think this is a situation where less is more.
Oh, and I can see that from an NFL perspective, Johnny. I'm not saying from an NFL perspective.
No, but I'm saying in a fantasy perspective, he's going to be better at the end of the game when they're trying to run out the clock or they're trying to get in the goal line when he only has 15 carries already, and he's going to get more yards per carry on those.
But you don't see it as, like, I look at what Kareem Hunt did to Nick Chubb, who I think hopefully we can all agree is a better running back than Josh Jacobs. Otherwise,
and they both had fantastic seasons.
They did, but when you look at what Jacobs has done over his career and you take even a few of those goal line carries away, what are you left with? 1,005? I mean, is that what we're looking at for Jacobs? Is that somebody you want to put your entire fantasy season on, especially in PPR when you're talking about a max of, 20 catches? He's already 30 points behind most running backs on catches when you're looking at that 40 to 50 range. So you're talking about you already have to make up 5 touchdowns. Now you bring in Kenyon Drake, who has already proven to be a very decent goal line back in his own right. He's done that with Arizona. He's put it in. And when you look at what Kenyon Drake did along the goal line in the second half of the season, he was one of the most bankable goal line backs in the NFL in the second half. This has to bother you a little bit if you have Jacobs on your team. This has to bother you because you're talking about a volume-dependent, absolute zero in the passing game, and now potentially a threat for goal line carries, which Booker wasn't. Booker would get knocked over by a gust of wind. That's not Kenyon Drake. So now you're talking about if he takes 2 to 3 touchdowns away. This has been my problem with Josh Jacobs all along, is your margin of error is so thin. It's so thin because you're not going to pop off one of those 6 or 7 catch games. So if he doesn't score, you're getting 7 to 10 points from him. That's it. And when I'm talking about my high-end guy, like you're talking second round, that's Tyreek Hill time. That's A.J. Brown time that you're getting in the second round now because everybody's so hung up on getting their running back. I can't do it. Kenyon Drake introduces more uncertainty to an already uncertain asset that literally had to score touchdowns because that's what he does. I am nervous as heck about Josh Jacobs. I can promise you that Josh Jacobs will not end up on any of my teams. Like it won't even be close. Am I maybe too low at 22? Sure. But I can't see him as a RB1 or RB2 on a championship team. I just don't buy that.
That's fair. Again, and obviously in the passing game, like you touched on, Kenyon Drake is going to be that pass catching back. So Josh Jacobs' limited amount of pass catching, you expect would probably go down even more so.
Is Theo Riddick just fed to the Wolves? He re-signed.
I think he had 13 total touches last year. I think I actually looked it up yesterday.
That's 13 total touches that Jacobs and Riddick or Jacobs and Drake might not get.
No, he's just a name now. You have Theo Riddick as your 4th string back. You guys must be loaded. That's the mentality I look at Theo Riddick. We got 3 more guys I want to touch on, so we'll go quick here. Doc, give me just a real quick thing about Jared Cook. Are you interested in him taking over Hunter Henry's role with the Chargers?
No, he is literally the most tight end or touchdown dependent tight end, I think, in the history of football.
All right, so no more talking about Jared Cook on this show. All right, that's good. Move on. Philip Lindsay signed a restricted free agent tender and then decided to join another backfield because him and the Broncos agreed it did not work together. So he's now with the drunken food combo meal that is the Houston Texans backfield right now. You have Philip Lindsay, you have David Johnson, you have Mark Ingram. I don't think I know a more disgusting backfield that I don't think I want any guys of than this, I think, in the history of me watching football. This is absolutely brutal. Lindsey is going to make $3.25 million in 2021. So first question to you, Doc, I'll go right back to you for this one. Any of these three guys, I know we touched Mark Ingram last week. Any of these three guys are you drafting at all? At all?
So I feel like it depends on like the value. Like in the 12th round, yeah, I'll take Philip Lindsay because I don't think Mark Ingram is going to be a threat at all. I think I don't understand that signing. I would still take David Johnson or Philip Lindsay, but I wouldn't feel comfortable with any of them being more than like a flex option. But once again, I think it depends on where you value certain players. Like Mike would take Josh Jacobs if he felt him in the 5th, 6th round, but he's not going to take him in the round, 1 or 2 where he's likely going. So I'm not going to take them where they're ranked, but if they fall, yeah, I mean, they've proven to be capable running backs in the past.
Mike, are you interested in, I mean, let's not say that they fall 2 rounds. I think people are like, okay, if they fall, I'll take them. But assuming that you have to take them at where they're probably going to be ranked at, are you interested in touching this backfield at all?
No, I mean, I'd rather go with the guys that are going in that range, the Leonard Fournettes, even the Tariq Cohens. I would rather have than this group. Houston did a very good job of basically taking all the players I don't want and putting them on one team. I mean, it's pretty simple. With the Deshaun Watson situation, I'm good with just letting this team go elsewhere. So like Doc said, if he fell, like from sitting there in the last round and it's like Philip Lindsay or JJ Taylor, sure, I'll take Lindsay. But when you talk about where he's going, when you're talking Leonard Fournette, when you're talking, honestly, a guy we talked about earlier, even with the Achilles injury, I think I might take a big swing at Marlon Mack over these guys. Like that's how low I am on this backfield right now.
Like you said, I think they are literally going to take every player that people don't want to draft and put them on one team. You also have, if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, we won't get into all the reasoning about Deshaun Watson, but if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, do they win a game next year?
No, they're front runners for 101 easily. If they were in my dynasty, I'd kick them out for obvious tanking. Like that's how bad this team is right now.
I can't imagine a worse team in any sport right now than the Houston Texans. Like I think if I was a fan, if I lived in Houston,
the Houston Rockets, they lost 20 in a row.
Have they lost 20 in a row?
Yeah, they won yesterday, but they'd lost 20 prior to that.
I hadn't even. Wow.
Poor John Wall, my God.
Poor Houston fans.
Yeah. I mean, they don't even have a championship to have by their name recently with all the Astros scandals and everything. It's a lot. It's where it's bad there. Let's touch on the last guy, though. Juju Smith-Schuster signing a 1-year, I believe, $8 million deal to stay with Pittsburgh. He had bigger offers from the Chiefs and from the Ravens. Chose to be loyal. You don't see that much these days. Stay with Pittsburgh. I'm curious, John, you putting him 1, 2, or 3 in terms of Steelers pass catchers next year between him, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson?
I mean, I think you put him 2 after Chase Claypool. I mean, you just have to look at the season they had together, and he was number 2. And sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes we try to outthink and overthink things, but sometimes it's just, you compare 2 players who played on the same team in the same season. One was better.
It's usually Brad with the spicy takes. Johnny's throwing a few out here today. I like it. I'm all here for it. Deontay Johnson at 3. So he's not a fan of the footwork king, Mr. Deontay Johnson. Doc, I'll go to you next. How are you ranking these 3 wide receivers, and is there value for Juju?
So I'm going to go Deontay 1, Juju 2, and Chase Claypool 3. I think Chase Claypool is very touchdown dependent. And Deontay Johnson, I think, is going to get the most targets, which is why I have him number 1. But I think Juju's a fan favorite, and as long as Ben is still there, I think he's going to feed him the ball. So that's why I have that as my order. I think Claypool is more talented at this point, but I think Ben sometimes locks in when he likes a guy.
Mike, I'm interested to hear your take as well, because Steelers' offensive line was ranked as one of the worst last year, and they've already lost a few pieces on their line as it is. Then you also have Deontay Johnson, who's going to be the spacing guy. You have Chase Claypool, who's going to be the deep threat contested catch guy. Juju is going to probably get to go back into the slot full time, where maybe he's more of a check down guy like we saw last year, which wasn't great for his fantasy value. You don't know if they're going to bring in a better running back than they had with James Conner and Benny Snell, so that could take some touches away. This is a team that's hard to read. How are you feeling about these 3 guys?
I actually have Juju as the number 1. I think when you look at it with the overall 2020 season, it's easy to look at Juju and say, well, what a disappointing season. I don't think he topped more than 7 targets, if I'm not mistaken, in the first 6 weeks. And then all of a sudden he took off. 6 out of his 9 touchdowns came in the second half of the season. He only had less than, I want to say, 7 targets in 2 games out of those final 8. All of a sudden things turned around and we went back to Juju. Deontay had the drops. Obviously, Claypool jumped out of nowhere and took off. But if I'm not mistaken, in PPR, Juju in the second half of the season was top 15. Why wouldn't he do that again? I think that, honestly, Claypool is touchdown dependent. You nailed that one perfectly. Deontay, just not what everyone wants him to be, especially with those drops. I think that Juju is the most bankable receiver on the Steelers. So I take him over both of them. I think that, honestly, the real question is 2 or 3, but Juju is the number 1 for me in Pittsburgh till he proves otherwise. And just taking a look at the game log, and admittedly, I was down on him too until I had a few people on the show come up and kind of defend him. I took another look, and that second half of the season was nice for Juju, and I just expect him to continue with that. I mean, why wouldn't he? I think that, John, you hit it perfectly. You look at last year, and you say, why wouldn't that continue? That everything looks the same
because they were losing. Ironically,
yeah.
like the first half of this season when he wasn't putting up stats is when they were undefeated, and when he starts getting the ball is when they start losing every game.
Exactly, but why would you expect them to lose? They're not going to get that cakewalk first half they had. I mean, what did they play? One team with a winning record where they didn't, So yeah, I think that when you look at what he did against Indianapolis in a tight game, 13 targets there. Against the Washington football team in a tight game, 10 targets. I mean, that's what I think you expect. Baltimore in a tight game, 9 targets. When it's a close game, Doc hit it perfectly. When it's a close game or they're losing, they go to Juju to bring them back. And I just don't think, especially Dupree left, I don't think this defense is as good as it's going to be. And I don't think they were ever, what were they, 11-0, if I'm not mistaken, 10-0? They were never that good. They were never that team. So I think you see a return to standard Pittsburgh being, 10-6, 9-7, and Juju feasts. I think he's a big time buy low for me.
Yeah, they were frauds last year. They were the most fraudulent 11-0 I think I've ever seen in my life. I think everybody knew. I don't think anybody thought they were going to lose. What was it, 4 of their last 5 games? That's a pretty steep cliff to fall down. But I'll be interested to see they lost pieces on their defense. They might have to do more catch up like that you saw with the Browns. So all 3 pass catchers could benefit. But it's interesting because we had each of you 3 pick a different number 1. So that just shows what it's going to be like probably drafting them next year. You don't know what you're going to get.
I mean, one of us picked the guy who had 19 targets in the playoffs, but I mean, only one of us did.
I feel like next season when it's over, they'll tag the other 2 and be like, who said that was the number 1?
I've said dumber things. You guys can hit me up. I'll retweet the hell out of that.
I love it. Well, that's great discussion. Obviously, there'll be more free agent news next week, but we had a lot of guys. Let's move to the fun part of the show, and let's start off with the question of the week. Mike, I hope you know where that's from, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. He's cultured. That's what we were looking for. So our question of the week is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Triple Play is now an official affiliate to Monkey Knife Fight, the fastest growing sports betting site in the United States. Make sure you use promo code Triple Play and get up to $50 of your deposit match when you become a new user and use that code. If you're looking to win some cash, make sure to follow the Triple Play Monkey Knife Fight shows coming soon to give you a 10 or 15 minute show with our locks to help you win big. All right. So our question of the week this week, John has it. So John, what question are we answering this week?
And this is purely as a fan of your respective teams. Would you rather, quote unquote, win free agency or win the draft?
Oh,
all right. Well, Mike, you're the guest, so we'll go to you first, unless you need time to think.
As a Patriots fan, I feel personally attacked by this. So I would personally rather win the draft. I think when you look at kind of what is your goal, and especially when you're talking about a team like ours that has celebrated championships, if I was a no championship franchise, I might go free agency. But for us, I'm looking to rebuild that next dynasty, and winning this draft specifically for the Patriots would include finding that next franchise quarterback is what we desperately need. So I think what it comes down to is a wonderful question, because when you're talking about a team that's never won, sell out for that one ring, right? But when you're talking a team that had sustained excellence, I'm not looking for one. We've done that already. I'm looking for that next dynasty. So that comes through the draft, not through free agency.
I think you put it really well. And just so Doc doesn't take anything from me, I want to go next. And I think you got to do it through the draft, most cases, because it means you're winning with guys that are cheap and you don't have to pay a lot. If you win in free agency, it probably means you're shelling out hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the Patriots had committed like 130 million or something in free agency this offseason, the first few days. Obviously, if guys don't work out, you might have cap hits and you're going to have dead money and stuff that could tie in. But if you draft really well, you have guys on cheap deals. And if they're really good players, that's how you win championships most of the time. You get a quarterback that's on a cheap salary, a rookie deal, and then you can pay up at other positions. So I would go winning the draft 9 times out of 10, unless, like Mike says, you're one of those teams that's like the Rams and you're trying to basically sell out to have a short window, and you know that you are trying to do that. In that case, I can see it's better to go through free agency. But what about you, Doc?
So you guys both took my answer, and David, I know you did it because we think similarly.
I know, that's why I had to go next.
Yeah, and also when you win the draft, like if you have a top pick and you're taking like the bona fide, like, oh, that's a guaranteed player, but like then it comes down to like scouting and picking players that have good value. Like the 49ers taking George Kittle in the 5th round, that's a great value pick. And that's somebody that's going to be a contributor that you ultimately have to pay. You could win free agency because you have a lot of salary cap and you're just willing to spend more money than other teams. And we see a lot of times people will overpay for free agents and then immediately regret it the year after. Like with Kyle Van Noy, signed a 4-year, $52 million contract, 1 year into it, and he's getting cut. So free agency is very limited, but I think draft is more long-term.
There you go. Great question, John. Way to hold that to the chest before the show. Let's move to the last segment, and that's going to be our game of the week.
It's time to
All right. John is also hosting the game this week, and John likes to go back to an old favorite. So, John, what are we playing?
As always, I love to do coach quotes or philosopher quotes.
I'll
give you a quote.
How do you have this many? This is like the 5th time you've done this game.
They've been doing – philosophers have existed for time immemorial, Eric. So there's literally an almost endless amount of quotes. I struggle more with the football quotes, to be honest. But so I'll give you a quote. You say either it's a philosopher or a coach, and you get a bonus point if you get the coach or philosopher correct. So I only have 5 of these, so you won't even need to use your toes. You just count on your fingers. I'm not going to keep score for you. So
John, I'm going to put this. John, this should be on your tombstone, philosopher or coach.
So just to start off, we'll start with what I got here. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it.
Are we going – who's going first?
I'll start with you, David.
Okay. Can you read it again?
Don't explain your philosophy, embody it.
Sounds like a coach, and I'm going Don Shula.
Doc?
Sounds like a coach, and I'm going Jimmy Johnson.
Daddy's home?
Sounds like a coach, and I'm going to go Pete Carroll.
That's actually a philosopher, Epictetus. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but Greek philosopher. The next one we have is discipline is not a light switch. Discipline is a way of life. Doc?
I'm going to go coach and Bill Belichick.
Mike?
Me and Doc were on the same page, but I'm going to go Bill Parcells.
Ooh,
that's a good one too. That's a good one too.
All right, well, we got to differentiate here. I'm going philosopher, and I'm going to go Plato.
That is Coach John Harbaugh.
You know, Mike, what's funny is John usually does this game when it's his turn to do the game. And I think I've learned more philosophers doing this than ever when I was in school.
So I took 2 years of philosophy, so I should be much better at this than I am. So this is getting embarrassing.
It's about the journey, mine and yours, and the lives we can touch, the legacy we can leave, and the world we can change for the better. Mike?
Philosopher and sugar. I am going to go Albert Camus.
That's a name that has not been on this show.
Wow.
David?
That's a philosophy for 2 years. Flex right there. I'm going to go philosopher Socrates.
I'm going to go philosopher Michi.
That is Coach Tony Dungy.
You did 3 coaches in a row?
Yeah, the
Dang,
first one was
was
a philosopher.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Time is a created thing. To say I don't have time is like saying I don't want to.
That's a coach,
David?
and I'm gonna say it's Mike Tomlin.
Eric?
I'm going to go philosopher Socrates.
That definitely feels like a coach. I'm going to go Andy Reid.
That is philosopher Lao Tzu.
Oh my god!
I got 2. End the game. End the game. Round down to 4
I
questions.
only got 1, but I can still come back here.
David's
zero.
got 0.
The last one is ability will never catch up with the demand for it. And I think Doc starts.
I'm going to go. Can you read it one more time?
Ability will never catch up with the demand for it.
I'm going to go coach, and I'm going to go Vince Lombardi.
Mike?
Damn, all right. So I'm trying to figure out my only options to win here are to get the coach's name or go philosopher. So I'm going to go philosopher Plato.
I'll go coach and Mike Holmgren.
That is a philosopher. It's Confucius, however. So I think we have a tie.
I got
And
the
wasn't
tie at
prepared.
least.
We do.
We
John,
do have
do you
a
have an
tie.
emergency one in case, or
Yeah,
call it a tie?
let me do a quick quote here. I won't tell you who or what's doing it. I know one
Dave,
time I think
you
we
don't
had
have
a
to
tie
answer
and
this one, buddy. You're already out.
Yeah, it's me and Mike.
I think I pulled up a quote last time and I said, okay, now let me give you the coach quote and then you guys can guess.
I'll be Mike's
this is
cheerleader.
from brainyquote.com. It's a quick Google, very reputable website. No free ads. I'm sorry.
There you go. You say you give a free ad.
We'll post all the quotes to tripleplayfantasy.com or tripplayfantasy.com. We're getting it's loading.
This is great. The dead air time. You know, we can just ask about.
Oh yeah. I mean, I only hurt myself, you know, because I'll be editing this later.
For the win.
I should have just said philosopher.
This is for the win. If you do not change direction, you may end up where you're heading.
Mike, I'll let you pick because I think it's your turn, and I'm going to just go the opposite.
Yeah, so that is a philosopher. And I will go Socrates.
I'm going to go coach because I want the game to end. And I'm going to go Mike Ditka.
That is another Lao Tzu quote as a philosopher. So it does not take the win, thank goodness.
Oh my goodness. Comes on the show first time. Gets the W with the comeback. You get the crowd cheer for that.
David, the crowd's also cheering because you got 0.
I mean, if we did the normal
that'll fly under the radar that David didn't get a single one correct.
If we did the normal 10, I might have gotten 1. But that game isn't my strong suit. But Mike, man, this was a total blast. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It was a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah, guys. Honestly, you ever need a guest, invite me back. I had so much fun. Plus, you're the only ones that don't keep me up till 11 p.m., so I appreciate y'all for that. I could actually go to bed at the normal time, but this was a lot of fun. Johnny, sorry I insulted Josh Jacobs. That's my bad, man. I apologize. I'm trying my best to be polite, but
the best thing is we'll just be able to look back on it when I'm correct. You know, I'll be able to do a little victory lap.
You can. I'm sure he'll get 25 catches this year, and I'll be real proud of him.
He had 33 last year. I looked it up.
I know when they signed someone for $7 million to make that shit stop.
I love this. It's going to be great all next season. Mike, in case people aren't familiar with you, can you tell everybody where they can find you, any of the stuff you're working on, or any other stuff you'd like to plug?
Yeah, so I'm at Daddy's Home FF on Twitter. Honestly, though, check out fantasyintervention.com and those writers. They're the smart ones. They're the brains behind it. I'm just an idiot making Rondell Moore jokes on Twitter. Those guys are putting out fire content, so check them out. Always find me during the season, Wednesday nights at 8, chopping it up with the hottest guests on fantasyintervention.com. But for the most part, during the off season, I'm just doing this. I'm just hanging out with friends and doing guest spots. This is honestly my favorite part of all of this, is coming on other people's shows. I don't have to write show sheets. I just show up and have fun. So this was a blast, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, it was our pleasure. Again, it's nice to finally connect. You see everybody's Twitter pictures, but you don't really get a chance to get to know them until you get to talk to them face to face. So this was a ton of fun for us. Make sure you follow Mike if you're not already. Everybody that was listening, thank you for listening. If you watched on YouTube, we appreciate you watching. We'll be back next week with a new episode with another great guest, and we have more great athlete interviews coming your way. So make sure you stay tuned for all the fire content coming all off season from Triple Play Fantasy. Catch you guys next week.